6 p.m. and I'll now call the May 10th meeting of the CDA to order. Take roll call, please.
Jerry Motter,
Present.
Wayne Clark,
Yes.
Karen Gale,
Here.
Alderman Weigel.
Here.
Alderman Haas.
Here.
Don Neumer.
Here.
And Jim Lozinski's excused. We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. First item, approval of the minutes of the April 12th meeting. Any corrections, or if not, please let's vote on them as they stand. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes stand.
You need a motion?
Passed.
A motion for,
I'll move approval.
Okay.
Second.
okay, we'll carry that, and you all voted, so.
All right, item 2. Resolution to approve amendment number 3 for the staging and grading of temporary easement agreement between the Community Development Authority of the City of West Dallas and the Mandel Group Incorporated. Group for the Phase 2 of Market Development south of National Avenue, Sona. Patrick, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, members of the authority, tonight we do have Bob Monet here from Mandel Group to kind of provide an update on the status of Makers Row, but just as background, as what staff has been doing, we continue to work with Bob Monet.
Excuse me. For the gentleman downstairs.
I thought you were adding emphasis to
no.
Bob Monet.
Oh, you had it on. I wasn't sure.
And what we've been discussing as a team is, as I alluded to at the last meeting, the fire financing. So we've had a meeting with fire. We've had a meeting with Valentine Coffee discussing possible financial assistance with a roaster. And we've drafted a letter to them, which will circulate here shortly, outlining that as well. We continue to work with Bob. He's going through his construction numbers. He's designing Phase 2. So when we describe Phase 2, so this is Phase 1 of Makers Row, and then this is not the current projected layout, but there's another design of a building that would go here that would have to go through still Plan Commission. But this area has gone through Plan Commission, has the approvals, and could start construction and close once the financing is all secure and in place. Bob's going to provide us an update where things are at. We've circulated a memo earlier today regarding the extension. The reason why we need an extension, it expired the staging and the soils agreement in April, and we continue in good faith move forward. You can see in the memo that they have created the Opportunity Zone fund necessary to put some investment there, so that's one part of the project. I know they've been in consultation with other tenants on the property. One of them is actually looking at an end cap space in the Sona lofts. That would be in this general area, I think around 5,000 square feet.
3,000 on that, 3,050 up front, 2,077
Okay.
on the other end.
So they would take all 3,000 of that end cap, which is a very nice neighborhood type of business that would go there. So we continue to work to get tenants in here, work to get the financing structures put together, and I think we're very, very close. And I'll turn it over at this point to Mr. Chairman, to Bob Monet to provide an update.
So, Bob, you have the floor. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Did that, the letter I sent you, is that what you circulated?
Mhm.
Great, okay. So, we're requesting this extension so that we can get to a closing. We're literally ready to move to a closing. There are some open items that we'll discuss here that will, that we need to tie the knots and finish them off. But as far as the project goes, there are no debt or equity contingencies. We have actually invested already a little over $1.6 million into a Qualified Opportunity Zone Fund, which is then it's been transferred into the project. So we are spending money right now on finalizing plans and specs and legal fees and other things that we have to spend money on. It's a fairly, for a small project, it's pretty complicated. It's we have in the first phase alone, we have a condominium, and we're selling the Valentine their condominium unit when we finish the base core and shell of it, and then they're going to finish their tenant improvements on the inside. So that's a fairly complex documentation. That deal is being done with a developer's fee, but there's no profit. If we're able to build it for less than what we forecasted, then we sell it for less to Valentine. If we end up going over budget, we have to eat it. So we give them a guaranteed maximum price on that. On the balance of it, we have tenants for the balance of that first phase. We recently shifted, we had a 3,000 square foot user who we don't believe is gonna be able to move forward. So we've shifted other prospects in to backfill that space, and we've had some expansion, recently a doubling of one of the other tenants to fill that space. So this, I mean, there are 7 or 8, conversations going on all at once. This project in its entirety is like trying to develop 8 restaurants simultaneously. So it's a lot of moving parts, but we're hoping to conclude our contract with Valentine within this next 30-day period. We're moving forward regardless, and that building will get built as shown. In the second phase, we have 60% of the space, 67% of the space spoken for in the second phase. And so we've accelerated that phase, which was originally planned to lag by about a year or two. We'll build that simultaneously. And so in addition to finishing the construction drawings on phase 1, we've started the design development drawings and the supporting drawings for the phase 2 building, so we can bring that through the process, because we have to get zoning and design approval on that. So within this next 30-day period, we'll be submitting that to go through the plan commission and the design review process for the phase 2 building. And then the intention is that we'll move right into that building sequentially. As the trades finish the first building, they'll move on to the second building, and start there. As Patrick mentioned, in addition to the 8 or 10 tenants that we're communicating with on the Makers Row project, we've identified, and we have 2 users that are sticky, that will occupy the 2 commercial spaces here, down at this end, and down at this end of the Sona Lofts building. We have letters of intent out to both of those parties. Both of them are anxious to move in relatively quickly. This party up here in particular wants to be open before the holiday season, because that's when they make a lot of their sales. And so we're fast tracking that right now, communicating with building inspection on how do we get an early occupancy permit for that part of the building when the rest of the building isn't yet complete. And we believe we have a good strategy between us and the city inspection department on how to do that. The other party at the other end will likely, they've been with us for over a year now, and we just got their tenant improvement costs, which kind of caused us to, well, and I say what it caused us to do. They're shocking how construction costs have moved, though. It's just nutty, what's happening in construction right now. So we're dealing with exacerbated tenant improvement costs for these smaller businesses, and so we're it just slows everything down. The construction on that overall building is going rapidly. We've taken some contingency hits on construction cost escalation. The recent increases in interest expense on the Sona Lofts project, just so you have an idea of when interest rates go up like they've gone up. Sona Lofts, the construction interest from start to finish construction will cost approximately $125,000 more, just because of the interest rate increase. We haven't even opened the construction loan yet. We're still spending equity. So we haven't even opened the loan, and just for that shorter period of time when the loan will be open for 8 or 9 months, $125,000 more interest expense, and still going up. On Makers Row, the interest rate, it looks like we've got about an $80,000 to $90,000 hit to the budget on that. So it's a very difficult environment in which to get real estate projects done, but we're funded and we're ready to move forward on Makers Row, and so we're asking for some additional time so that we essentially remain in contract with you. And as we indicated, we will likely be coming back as soon as we know what our construction start date is, and when we understand the sequencing of all the agreements that have to be put into place, purchase and sale agreement, development finance agreement, and then all the other parts and pieces that have to fit together for the closing. We may be coming back and asking you for the same latitude that you gave us on Sono Lofts, which is, if we use our own money at our own risk, can we start construction even if we haven't dotted all the i's and crossed all the t's? We are now finally, we have the first day of good weather this spring, and we'd like to build. We'd like to be building right now. And you will see some additional grading work now going on that site, right up on the corner. And if you've been past the site, you realize we've been dealing with piles of dirt out. We have a fair amount of additional dirt that we're trying to negotiate our way through. We have a lot of backfilling that's now gonna happen. So lots of moving parts and pieces, but everything except, as Angie and I were talking today, Lot 4, we have a concept on Lot 4 to come back with that we have to pick up. But we really want to get Makers Road done before we distract ourselves on anything else. And we have tenants that want to get in. So I think it's all good news. I think it's all, I think even though it's a small project, it's as complicated as any of the others. So it's a whole lot of time on a relatively small project, which seems to kind of compress the work effort, but it'll be worth it when we get it done. And I think that as you see the tenancy of the buildings, I think you'll be extremely happy, not only with representation of businesses that are already in West Allis, but also businesses that are moving here from outside the community. I think it'll be a really great mix.
Go ahead, Mr. Clark.
Bob, in the second page of your letter, you say, while the city has been instrumental in securing a $500,000 EPA loan for some of this work, it remains a loan that needs to be repaid, and who will be repaying that?
The developer repays that loan.
Thank you.
So the city is awarded EPA funds to seed a revolving loan fund that has been used very successfully. We end up paying back the city. The city extends us very favorable terms. I think the point I was trying to make is it's a little project that because of the nature of the users and the cost to build it, with all the kitchen build, it's a very expensive project to build. It needs a lot of help. So, and the point that I was making is that we wanted to recognize that the city's been instrumental in bringing some EPA funds to the table. It remains a loan that we have to pay back, but it does give us some relief on our interest expense and on the repayment schedule.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, we have a motion for the resolution?
Do you want to probably just do that after closed session?
Okay.
Well, I mean,
I didn't,
Can we do it now?
we can do it now.
yeah.
One
Go ahead,
question.
Karen.
Wait,
You have the floor.
So we're specifically requesting the date be extended to June 15th. Is that sufficient time?
I mean, we have a lot of work to do before that.
There's a lot to do, but I think it's, we discussed it with staff, and undoubtedly, these things always take a little longer than we
Right.
like.
Right.
But I think the intent is to make sure that that there is a sense of urgency to get it done. And we're comfortable with that. We trust the staff and the city, and it's been a wonderful working relationship. We may need to come back one more time, don't know, but so this gives you a chance, if we come back again, it'll give you a chance to say, if something didn't go the way you thought it was gonna go, or the way we represented, it gives you a chance to say, what happened? I thought we were ready to go. So it works for you, we're okay with it, because
That is-
we know where we're at, so.
That is why, as staff, we've been doing this like every month or month and a half or so coming back, is that when we wanted to get Makers Road done, we wanted to, let's keep this moving.
Okay.
and get to a, we want to sell it. The CDA doesn't want to own that land. And Bob is busy working over there, and we want to get him building, so.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Mr. Neal.
I'm a little confused, what's being asked. So, the June 15th date is for the soil,
So,
the temporary easement?
so what we have is an easement that's called a staging and soil agreement to provide access to put in infrastructure and put soils on our land. We have not sold that land yet. So the phase 1 and phase 2 pieces of land are owned by the CDA.
Got it,
And this
yep.
is allowing a continued access to those sites. And at the point, if we can't get to a closing, I hate to say it, but then we have to go, Bob, you have to be off this land, move your dirt.
But number
And,
one
and then
of
we-
the
we mo-
resolution,
right.
that part, I follow that part.
Right.
But number one of the resolution says, upon the authority's approval of the purchase and sale and development agreement, the executive director is authorized to enter into an amendment to the site agreement. So are we approving the amendment to the site agreement?
So
or-
the staging agreement that we have is under the purchase and sale agreement that went with Sona. So it's an amendment to the staging agreement, not the purchase and sale agreement.
In the staging agreement
Right.
is the language that pertains to the purchase of these two parcels. So the staging, the soil staging and management agreement, whatever the full name was, that provided for access to be able to grade these parcels, and it also gave us the opportunity, there's also a provision in there that provides us with an opportunity to acquire the parcels.
Right.
And I believe that there was like a May and July date, or a March and July date originally when we signed these last fall. And so by amending and extending the soils management agreement, it automatically extends the dates for our ability to exercise our rights to acquire the parcels. So what we're asking for is until June 15th to be able to provide you notice no later than June 15th that we legally are prepared to proceed and close.
And
the
close.
parcels.
So why isn't the June 15th date in this resolution anymore? And what is July 1st, 2022? What's that date relative to?
That was the amount of time we were gonna grant up to. And this June 15th came in the memo we got yesterday from Bob. So he said, I'll get this all, give you
So
notice, but
initially, we were gonna say July 1st.
we were ready to go to July 1st, but
Now it's June
But I wasn't
15th.
privy to that, or else I would have said July.
That's what
I
kind
mean,
of
if
confused me
any,
about your
if-
question.
I would leave it as July 1st, because then we know at that point and go to the next CDA meeting in July and go, okay, we have to either
All right, so we're
amend this
leaving
or
it as
leave
July
it as
1st,
July.
not the 15th that was in
Bob
his-
said he
Bob's
was
memo.
asking
Okay.
for June 15th, that's within that
Okay.
timeframe,
Okay, all right.
so.
So the,
But what we're voting on is to give him till July 1st,
Yes.
not the 15th. Okay, I
Right.
feel better about that. Yeah, okay.
And Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
So the only thing we're doing is sliding the date. We're not,
Just moving the
we're
date.
not changing the language of any of the purchase and sale agreements or anything.
No.
All we're doing with this
the date.
resolution is changing the date. Move approval.
Been moved for approval? Any further discussion?
just one.
Go ahead.
Can this be clear?
Sure.
It's really not clear what we're approving.
I don't have a copy of the resolution in front of me, did we bring those down?
You got one in there?
Are you in the agreement or the
I'm in
resolution?
the resolution.
So you're not supposed to read the resolution.
Which line are you,
Number
You're right
one.
down about, yeah. right here.
so so when we did this agreement, we did this in conjunction with Sona. So the authorities approve of the purchase and sale
Now I've got the
development.
connection, but it just says you're going to enter into an amendment for what?
It's an amendment of the staging and grading temporary easement agreement,
To do what?
just to move the date.
Okay, can that be clear in the
Sure.
resolution?
We can add a fourth line that said this, by this action of the CDA, we can extend the soil staging and grading temporary easement agreement to July 1st.
Thank you.
Okay?
You got that?
Yep.
Okay.
Move approval as
Well,
amended.
someone would have to make amendment, yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And I
then
second
Wayne-
on the
oh,
amendment.
We've been, move approval and a second on the amendment. We'll vote on the amendment first. All in favor of the amendment, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Amendment passes. Now we'll go back to the resolution.
Move approval as amended.
Second.
All in favor? Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the resolution, please say yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Opposed? Resolution passes. Thank you. Okay.
I got work to do.
Thank you, Bob.
You don't.
Thank you.
See, you found out you had
It's
some
nice-
extra
it's nice to
time,
see
right?
everyone in person.
Right, right.
Good to see everyone.
Even if it's hot in here.
Oh, it's hot here.
All right. All right, we'll go to item
Change of
number
seasons.
3. Resolution to approve extension of time for the letter of intent between the Community Development Authority and Balm Reversions LLC for the property located at 6771 West National Avenue and potentially portions of 67th * West Mitchell Street, tax number 4530564-002, and portions of tax T number 4540251-001. Patrick, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, tonight I'm going to have Sean just give an update on where we're at with the bomb revision group. There's been a lot of activity, contractors going through the building. Right now, they've asked for an extension, and Sean will outline why we need that extension.
We entered into a letter of intent checkers. with Balm Revision approximately 60 days ago, and that time period's come up, as Patrick mentioned. And they're requesting another 90 days. When we entered into this 60-day letter of intent, there was never a thought of this deal's going to get done in 60 days. It was more of set up as a check-in of, are they out there getting things done? And they have, I think Patrick sent an email earlier. I think, Jerry, you have a hard copy in front of you as well. If anybody else needs a hard
You
copy.
need one? You got one?
I have the email.
They kind of sent a very detailed summary of the things they've accomplished. It seems quite real in what they've done as far as, getting design done, getting engineers out there looking at the structural integrity of the building. They've been checking out the condition of the sewer. They found out it's not in the best of shape. And then the big thing with the building is the windows. And they've had a number of window specialists out there, and then as well as HVAC people, because it's all tied to the energy envelope of the building. And what they've determined is that they can't. So National Park Service, in order to make this deal work, they need to get the historic tax credits. National Park Service is would ideally want them to restore the windows, like a single pane glass the way they were and all that stuff.
Oh, that's a waste.
It doesn't work energy-wise.
Unless it's a foundry.
And it's a foundry.
Provide its own heat.
And so what they're asking to do is, so they kind of figured that was the case, but they have to prove it to the Wisconsin Historical Society and then to the National Park Service. So what they've been doing is basically documenting everything that, from these different specialists to submit to the state, and then if they pass it on to the National Park Service, to the National Park Service. And so that's really where they're at. They're hoping to submit that next week. It's called a single item review. And so typically the state and the National Park Service reviews the whole plan, and they make comments on particular items and things like that. Because this is such a big item, they want to understand if they can get this done or not. We've toured buildings. It's not that unusual to do this. We've seen historic tax credit buildings where they replace the windows with windows that look like the old windows.
Right.
And so that's really what they're proposing. It's not uncommon, but you do have to go through this sort of process to prove that you have to do it. And so that's really where they're at with it. At the same time, they're working with tenants. They have 3 major tenants that they've essentially started, given floor plans to, for them to return, more detailed floor plans back, and as they can kind of try to understand what each one wants to do and how they would use the space, work out lease rates and things like that. So the big thing, though, the first thing, just to understand how big of a project it is. The project cost is the key. And so that's what they've really been doing in every phase of that you could possibly do it. It's just, these are long projects. They've had it for 60 days, they've accomplished quite a bit, and they're just asking for 90 more, and we will check in 90 days. The project's not gonna be done in 90 days, but we might have a response from the National Park Service on the window question in 90 days, so it seems like a good check-in point. Basically, they each get 30 days, the state and the National Park Service get 30 days to review it. And so hopefully it'd be, done within that 90-day period.
Go ahead, Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Sean. On the first page of the letter you received today from Ron, it says, scoped all internal and outbound sewer lines within the building. Noted, sewer infrastructure is failing and may be potential outsized cost issue. Do you have any sense of what that cost might be?
Yeah, we actually, that line made me call them immediately.
It's when I had mine.
And he said, he wished he wouldn't have put it in there like that. Because the building's so close to the street, it's not gonna be,
Hundreds of
it's just an added cost. I mean, it's not, if the building was pushed back and then a lot of it too depends, it's all kind of gravity related, right? So where they have to feed it to. And so they don't, it's just one of many obstacles. I think it's just a poorly worded sentence that,
But he did call it out, and
yep,
who will pay for this?
it's a partnership. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, when we look at the capital stack here, as you can see, the multiple different sources, whether it's the historical tax credits, bank financing, ultimately, it's in the whole pot where TIF might be involved, or WC grant. It's not like they applied to go, hey, we need a sewer ladder, it's just that it's the project costs. The big thing is the windows, that's a huge cost. And we've been in multiple meetings with people over there discussing the windows, and they're debating what to do. And if the state, and the realization here is if the state or the historical society or the National Park Service looks at it, right?
Yep.
I mean, if they come to the conclusion and say we can't remove the windows, I think the question is, then we have to pursue a different angle, like
Right.
raise the building.
Bulldozer?
Yeah.
Like a bulldozer. I don't like to say
Different
that
angle.
word, but,
I'll move approval.
yeah.
Been
It's-
moved
it
for
is
approval and second?
Just
not
Oh,
the
I'm sorry,
bulldozer
Don.
part,
I didn't
right?
see ya. Go ahead.
two thing, one question. and,
Go ahead.
Is it possible to bulldoze this now that it's been designated?
It hasn't,
It hasn't, that's,
hasn't been designated.
It hasn't been.
It hasn't been.
It's
No.
gone
just
through the
the
first, it's
It's
eligible.
eligible. It's
It's
gotten like
eligible.
the golden
Okay.
ticket from the state that said you're eligible for historic tax
Okay.
credits, but it's not been listed on the National Register.
And then this, I have a similar issue with this resolution.
Okay.
Are we asking for 90 days, an extension?
Yes.
Can we add that to the resolution?
Yeah.
And so if there's an amendment,
I move an amendment.
second.
All right,
Thank you.
you got it in there? Okay.
Yes.
And
All
Mr.
right.
Chair, I do have a question also.
Well, go ahead, Alderman Weigel.
When we're talking about potential tenants, are they kind of up to speed with what's going on at Makers Row? I mean, I'm gonna just pull it out of the air. It's like, hate to see, well, we're really gonna put a ramen noodle place in there, but Makers Row is getting a ramen noodle place, and I'm making this up, you know.
We have communications like
So
that.
there
yeah.
were not, there's not like, oh, I had no idea that that's what was gonna be at Makers Row, and that was gonna be a key tenant, and, okay.
Yep.
So-
And it's looking, the users they're looking at are not going to conflict with
That was
with what you would see at Makers Row. It's looking more like, kind of more major event space type thing, with potentially like a kitchen incubator type space mixed in that type thing. So.
Any further questions? If not, first, we'll vote on the amendment. Any further discussion for the amendment? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
aye.
Opposed? Amendment passes. Now we'll go back to the resolution. We had a second. Is there any further discussion on the resolution? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. Item 4, discussion on proposed urban pioneer condo development on 81st and National.
We'll just do that one in closed session,
All
Mr.
right.
Chairman.
How about 5, discussion regarding development efforts at 6400 Street block west of Greenfield Avenue? Hold that for closed session?
Just wanted to, we do, yeah, we can do that in closed session too.
All right. What about the,
And we kind of went over items 6:30.
all right, we'll hold that. And then, how about number 7, consideration relative to report on redevelopment initiatives? Patrick, are there any questions by any of the?
Want to highlight this one?
Yeah, we did a few things here. I mean, we've just keep you updated. I mean, you know, not in the National Avenue Corridor, but an extension of our downtown here. The former J.C. Penney building, 7140 West Greenfield. You can kind of see work is being done. They're actually looking at. They were going to place tiles. They didn't, so they're removing those little stone pebbles that are currently attached to the building. And what it's actually a masonry company that's doing it, and they do restoration work, and they're thinking they could potentially restore the brick, which is, they didn't think they would be able to, and so the plan had like tiles, kind of a little bit more modern look, a kind of black tile kind of look to it before, so they might be coming back and looking at, you know, restoring the old facade, type of thing. It looks borderline to me, based on the shape you're seeing here, but they can do pretty amazing things. So that's one kind of a fun one to watch. The storefront windows and these second floor windows are on order and should be coming in the next few weeks. So once those windows are in, I mean that'll be an interesting change right there. And then the next phase and then they'll go to the inside and start, which is a major project, an elevator, sprinkler system, all that stuff.
Has he applied for the licenses he's gonna need?
So he has not applied for the liquor license. He is going for his special use, or no, conditional use, at the next council meeting. And then I think if he gets that approval, they'll direct him, I believe, go for his liquor license then.
Before we run out.
Yeah.
Well, that's the same thing for what we just
Oh, yeah,
discussed too,
everything
Makers
else,
Row.
everything
Yeah,
else
there's
too,
gonna be
yeah.
multiple licenses needed.
Demolition continues at Miller Castings. We continue to sort of send it out to different developers just to get a feel if there's any interest in potentially in the development community. It is privately owned by the foundry company out of Indiana, so it's not, we're just sending them their contact information. It's not for us to, but just to
No,
see.
we share it with developers, just, you know, people, hey, what sites
Options,
do you
yeah.
have? What are you thinking? If they could put it together,
Let him.
let them. But, yeah, they're still going through the demo. I think they're moving along nicely on the demo. That's,
Yeah, it's about, maybe 2/3 are still standing.
Right.
So It's taken a while.
So yeah, is it fair to say that that company out of Indiana is actually being a good corporate citizen in doing this demolition? Or is it more they're just motivated that they know they have to do the demolition in order to have any value on it to sell it? Or is it a little bit of both?
I mean, the land price is gonna go up because they paid the cost to raise that building. I mean, but they had to tear that down because the building codes would have, the building inspection was already on them because the doors were open, the property was left abandoned. I mean, you could have walked right in. I think people were getting inside.
Yeah, we're having problems there.
So he advanced the demolition, and that was something we discussed when he was, we just had discussions about acquisition and different things, so nothing, just kicking things around, planning. And there's nothing, we've not made any commitments, and our role right now is really, let's show this to developers and get some feedback. There has been some interest, probably a handful of places. We've gotten some feedback. It's more recessed back in terms of a site. A lot of questions about the connecting road that is going to be very expensive to go from 60th to 70th Street through this area.
Do we know where that is now? Is that still an environmental impact statement?
I think they're beyond that because they've been doing surveys in this general area. I think, Jerry, you've seen them out
Had
there.
air over there in the last 2 months, probably 4 or 5 times.
So,
Has DOT made an announcement on the project yet?
no.
We just asked Pete about it yesterday, or Pete Daniels, our engineer, and he said it's not for sure looks like it's likely gonna happen, but it's not a done deal. And it's scheduled, it would be, these things always get pushed around, but 2025 is of right now, but they always get, it's a very tentative date.
Because that's really gonna change the flavor of that Washington
Yep.
on the north, on the north end of this project. It's really gonna give it a higher value, I think, with more street traffic, more visibility.
Potential, yeah.
Yep.
The northern end of the site, lends itself well for maybe some sort of an industrial use. I know we've looked at commercial or maybe even housing. I mean, it's one, that one's either or. We have had, I would say, multifamily type of proposal, kind of looking at it, as well as industrial, or a mix. So, just, nothing's really grabbed on yet, so.
Well, they said the road is coming right through the Department of Transportation's buildings down there that
Yeah,
they
that
just
would-
built
that would
10
go,
years ago.
yeah.
Up the embankment there. And then maybe a third of that 4 acres there are gonna be road. And then through the public parking lot that the city owns over there. And then curve down.
But that parking structure stays.
Yes.
No, yeah, that public parking lot that's in
Right,
there,
yeah.
the city owns.
There might be some discussions here because of, I think, Summit Place has some connections to the property north of this for parking. And there's a truck training.
Truck training.
Truck
That's just a
training.
temporary.
It's just a month-to-month
Yeah.
user that,
So we've had some discussions there as well, so.
Well,
I know this one comes up, right now we're just doing more testing. We've had some interesting discussions with other groups lately, but I just want to give you that we are just doing more testing out in this area.
Patrick, what about the contamination of where the foundry was there? I mean, that's up to the to the owners yet? or-
It's still owned by the group that bought Motor Castings.
Okay,
In the files, I believe it's still listed as Motor Castings.
right.
So whoever took title to owning Motor Castings that's who's responsible.
They rip it down there.
We haven't had any discussions since last year with the property owner, other than
I was just
what's the
curious.
status of demolition and when they were baiting for the rats in the area, so. I don't think,
Is Joe Kempen the point person for Dalton on this? or-
no, it's a Jacob Yanni out of Warsaw, Indiana.
He works for Dalton.
He works for Dalton.
he's up here often though.
Yes, he does come up here often. Then we can go into closed session,
Okay.
just briefly.
Warsaw, Indiana.
For agenda items 2 to 6, the committee may convene in closed session pertinent to the provisions of section 19.85/1/E, the state statutes for the purpose of deliberating and investing public funds wherever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. This committee can convene in open sessions after completion of the closed session to consider the balance of its agenda. Can we have a motion to go into closed session, please?
Second.